Our last theme for this class is managing a sales force, and we're going to talk about managing individuals and how we're going to hire and train and compensate our talented workforce that we rely on for many, many organizations. Time management is a critical skill for a lot of professional positions, but it's incredibly important for sales positions. In many sales positions, there's quite a bit of freedom and flexibility to manage your own work. And so making sure you stay on top of the tasks that you need to do is really critical. Good time management can increase sales volume by improving your overall effectiveness in your selling practice and enabling you to spend more time in face-to-face selling situations rather than on some of the ancillary type of activities that salespeople need to do as well. There should be a high priority to improve your overall time and territory management, and commitment to those ideals is really key. Some of the time-consuming activities that many salespeople spend a lot of time on that don't necessarily directly tie back to increasing sales or improving customer relationships. A study found that 60% of salespeople spend on average 60% of their time on administrative tasks and on travel. So finding ways to become more efficient at those administrative tasks and, when possible, reducing or better managing your travel expectations can really help your overall sales performance. Completing sales records can also be a really time-consuming task. It's important that those tasks get done, but finding ways to streamline those tasks and make those tasks easier for salespeople to do is important. And time spent on follow-through and follow-up are really time-consuming as well. And all of those things take time away from direct selling activities. For really productive salespeople, sometimes they hire assistants that can help them do some of the more administrative, task-oriented activities that need to get done in relation to the sale, so that the salesperson can focus on what they do best, which is selling. It's important that you keep a log and evaluate how you're spending your time and managing that time effectively. Changing your work habits can be really difficult to do, and commitment is really key, because the more time you spend on direct selling activities, the greater your sales are likely to be. Some time management methods that salespeople use is to set a series of personal goals, whether they're career goals, family goals, or life goals, and following goal setting principles, which you've covered a dozen times in different classes and we're not going to cover again here. Preparing a daily to-do list and avoiding those activities that don't ultimately contribute to your sales performance. You want to set aside specific work hours where you're going to only do your work and keep non-paying activities or those personal activities outside of that time frame. You want to create a calendar and a schedule that works for your life, and organize your selling tools so that you have things at the ready at all times. You want to reflect on the things that you want to change in your professional life and what's working really well, what do you do well, and what do you need to improve. You want to write down your goals and include steps to achieve those goals. You want to modify your environment if the environment is not conducive to you being successful in your job, and you want to monitor your behavior and reward your progress for getting things done and improving your overall performance. In addition to managing your time, it's very often important to manage the territory that you are responsible for as a salesperson, or that your sales team is responsible for. Sales territory is the geographic area where prospects and customers reside. Territories may be based on things like class of customer, sales potential, or industry. It's a specific number of present and potential accounts that need to be called on in a convenient and economic fashion. You want to, of course, classify all your customers and classify them based on territory and develop a routing or planning schedule that will help you map the most efficient way to cover your territory so that you're not zigzagging all over the place, but you can concentrate your sales activities in specific corners of that geographic territory at a time. You want to obtain a map. Consider dividing your territory into smaller areas or groupings. Develop a routing plan for a specific period of time. So maybe, for example, on Mondays, if your territory is PEI and you're based out of Charlottetown, maybe on Monday you travel up west to West Prince, and maybe on Tuesdays you travel east to the eastern part of the province, rather than sort of zigzagging across the province in a more random fashion. You want to develop a schedule that accommodates your customers' needs and plan for extra time, and decide on how frequently you need to physically visit your customers, because those things can really have an impact on your ability to manage your territory. If a lot of your time is spent traveling to and from your customers to pay a personal visit, then that's time that is lost. Obviously, you do need to do those in-person visits. Those are incredibly important, but if you can do them strategically to minimize the travel time, it can be very effective for your sales objectives. Another way of improving efficiency is to develop sales call plans. These are actual plans of action for each of your customers. It'll dictate how often you need to contact them. It will keep a record of your previous interactions with these customers. It will tell you what you need to do to follow up after you've met with your customers. So it's a really good and succinct way of tracking your personal visits with your sales clients so that you don't miss anything, so that there's a good, accurate record for you to refer to make sure that you're doing the best job in servicing those accounts. Another thing that's important to manage from a sales perspective is stress. Selling can be an incredibly stressful occupation. It's very non-routine in nature. It can be very long hours. There's a great deal of uncertainty, and there's a considerable amount of rejection and disappointment embedded into the job. And so that can be really stressful. So it's really important to manage that stress. Stress can be caused by things like trying to meet aggressive sales quotas. Travel. Travel can be an extremely stressful component to a job, especially when you have obligations at home. It can add to those stresses. Missed appointments, large group presentations, a lot of people find those very stressful. Lack of feedback, understanding why things maybe aren't going the way you want them to go. And there can be a lot of information, and a lot of information, when you don't have time to process that information, can be very stressful. So it's important to understand how to manage that stress level. If you're in a leadership position in a sales organization, it's really important to understand how to lead and manage your sales force. And leading and managing are two different skill sets. Leadership is the process of inspiring and influencing and guiding employees to participate in a common effort or to help the organization achieve its common goals. Leaders are made and not born, so anybody can be a leader. And there isn't a single type of leadership that works in all situations. Sales management, on the other hand, is the process of planning, implementing, and controlling the personal sales function. It's a more tactical kind of skill. It involves external management activities and requires coordination and cooperation with almost every internal department in an organization. So one is really sort of visionary and about bringing out the best in people, and the other one is more about managing those resources, including your human resources, to ensure you're getting the most value out of those resources. When you're leading or coaching salespeople and you want to bring out the best in them in terms of peak performance, you want to make sure that you are documenting any problems that arise, so keeping good, accurate records of people's performance and any challenges. Also, of course, keeping a record of stellar performance as well. You want to get the salesperson to recognize and agree that there's a need to improve in a specific area and document that. You want to explore solutions collaboratively with the salesperson to help them meet those objectives and get a commitment from the salesperson to take action to correct the behavior. One of the most challenging things to do if you're an organization that has salespeople as part of the organization is to recruit and select good salespeople. I've talked to a lot of my friends who run businesses and who have salespeople within their organizations. That is the position that they find most challenging to fill with a good person. It's one of the most significant tasks of a sales manager is recruiting and selecting, and about 20 to 25% of salespeople employed are selling products that are not suited to their particular personality. I'm surprised it's actually that low. I would think it would be higher. Successful salespeople are often very difficult to identify. It's more of a science than an art, and there isn't any neat little tool or test or way of determining who's going to be a good person. You want to, of course, figure out exactly what the job requirements are and try to find the person who best fits those particular job requirements. The job description could include whether you're talking about new or established territories. It's very different if you're asking a new salesperson to take over existing sales accounts versus whether they have to establish new sales accounts. Those are two very, very different tasks that are being assigned to a salesperson. Is it a new product or an established product or service? Is there going to be a lot of close supervision or is there a lot of independence in the job? And what about things like travel and transfers and promotional opportunities? You want to figure out what those are, and so that there's a very clear expectation among yourself as the sales organization, along with any prospects that you might be considering to hire for your sales positions. There are several places or sources that you can use to try to recruit applicants for your sales positions. You can, of course, look within your organization or get your employees to offer referrals. You can go to college and university campuses and try to recruit recent graduates. You can use trade and newspaper ads. Trade ads can be very, very effective if you're in a specific industry that has very specific sales needs. That could be a really good vehicle for recruiting people. You can use employment agencies and listings, including headhunting firms if it's a really sort of high profile, high potential position, or you can use the internet and job banks and those sorts of things. Ultimately, of course, you want to select the best qualified applicant. The applicant must have a high level of interest and enthusiasm for the job, a high degree of self-motivation. That's probably one of the most important aspects of a sales job. They have to be highly self-motivated. They have to have a high level of integrity because ultimately they're going to be representing your company, your product, and your brand in the marketplace, and you want them to have a high level of integrity. And you want them to have evidence of business skills and closing skills. They need to have those core fundamental skills in order to be successful in sales positions. Once you find the best qualified person and hire them, you need to do two things. You need to offer them thorough orientation to the business operations before they begin their sales activity, and you want to provide them training to do the job. The more positive view of the job, the greater the commitment and the improved performance that you can expect. A basic foundational program should include basic knowledge of the product lines, the company's marketing strategies, and the territory that they're going to be covering, along with any relevant business trends. You want to focus on attitude towards the company and its products and services and its customers, and make sure that that's a very positive attitude. And you want to develop in them the skills in applying the personal selling principles and practices to make sure that they understand all of the steps of the selling process and are well equipped to execute those steps in a way that helps your organization achieve its goals. There are two sources of motivation for salespeople. And both are important. There isn't one that's more important than the other. Both are incredibly important. Internal motivations are those intrinsic rewards that occur when a duty or task is performed well. It's that sense of achievement. It's being challenged. It's a sense of having a responsibility and control over your own destiny. It's opportunities for advancement and for growth as an individual and as a professional. It's enjoyment of the work itself and being involved in key decision making within the organization. External motivation is action taken by others that involve rewards or reinforcements that can cause the worker to behave in ways to help ensure that they get these rewards. It could include things like contests or prizes or bonuses. Bonuses in particular are really popular and common in sales positions. And it's also an appreciation for a job well done. It's recognition by your colleagues and your supervisors that you're doing a good job. Organizations should provide a mix of internal and external motivators, since different individuals are motivated in different ways at different points in their life. So it's important to use both of these strategies to motivate your sales force. Effective use of external rewards. They should focus on several important aspects of the salesperson's job, and it shouldn't necessarily strictly be tied to dollar value of products sold. That's an extremely important metric, yes, but there are other important metrics as well that should be part of the external reward system. You want to evaluate your incentive program to determine what ultimately has the most impact on performance. And you want to set goals that are realistic, that people can actually achieve. Develop a plan that rewards sales, things like collaborations and achievements of specific sales goals. Again, not necessarily all tied to dollar value of products sold. There can be other aspects of sales goals that are relevant to recognize and reward in your sales force. So there's different ways you can compensate salespeople, and most professional sales positions offer a combination of compensation, including direct and indirect payment. There can be positions that are straight commission, where the only money you make is the money you make or earn from commission. There's commissions with draws or guarantees, meaning you can, basically all this means is you can sort of level out the amount of money you earn over a year so that there's less fluctuation, fewer peaks and valleys, where you can basically draw from your commission before you actually earn the commission. So it just allows people who need a little bit more or want a little bit more stability in their income to have that stability. You can have a fixed salary plus a bonus, or fixed salary plus commission. It's common, especially early on in sales positions, where you may not have the volume of sales needed to provide a livelihood. Sometimes people start with a base salary and the commission is added on to that. Or you can hire people on straight salary. Straight salary can work in some kinds of sales positions, but in many sort of high profile, high potential sales positions, good salespeople do not want to be paid on a salary. They want to earn commission because they recognize their compensation will significantly be higher if they are compensated, at least in part, by commission. Compensation plans can be designed to achieve a variety of sales objectives, including the movement of specific products, not just products in general, but specific products. It can be percentage of sales increases. It can be the establishment of new accounts or increase in sales activity. These are all really good sales objectives that could be recognized in compensation plans. It's really important that your employees know what the sales objectives are and how their compensation is tied to those objectives. So you want to make sure those are really carefully explained, and the plans should be flexible and change with market conditions. Sometimes there's things that are going on in the environment around us that we have no control over, and it's important that your compensation plans recognize that some things are beyond your salespeople's control, and you want to have a plan that recognizes or is flexible enough to accommodate that. So some of the ways you can assess sales productivity is quantitative. So again, sales volume in dollars sold or units sold. It can be year over year comparisons. So how much better are you performing this year than last? It can be sales by product or product line. If there's particularly new products that you want to move or get out into the marketplace, you may want to focus in particular on certain products. It can be opening of new accounts, so generating new business from new customers. That can be an important metric. The amount of new account sales, so how much are these new accounts purchasing? It can be obviously profitability or number of customer calls. Some qualitative criteria that can measure productivity are things like attitude, product knowledge, communication skills, personal appearance, generated goodwill among customers, your selling skills, and your initiative. Now, obviously, qualitative criteria are much more subjective and much harder to evaluate for busy salespeople, but they can play an important role in assessing the productivity of your sales force.